that. And it seems like the younger generation today are a little more empowered in the things that they know and things that they believe and that they fight for them, right? And kind of breaking down some of those societal norms and some of the rigidity that comes with sexual exploitation or exploration, and some of those things. So how do you, I don't know if you deal with couples at all. I know it's kind of how I was introduced to you, because I kind of saw something on Instagram and then I kind of asked you some questions you were, nice enough to answer. And I appreciate that. But I think a lot of it is, like you said, it's communication, right? Having those talks and being open and upfront. Unfortunately, a lot of us from a certain time period have either gone through or experienced a lot of sexual trauma, and that kind of stunts your sexual exploration. What are your thoughts on that and sexual trauma and things of that nature?
Yeah, sexual trauma is very common. In women in particular, it's about 1 in 3 women have been affected by sexual trauma. And I think that it has a huge impact. I can speak to that a little bit personally, in that it definitely, for me, made me dissociate from the act of sex and not really being present with my partner. And some people become hypersexual, where they want more sex. They're more into porn, maybe strippers or other sexual activities. Other people become potentially a little bit more hyposexual, in that they turn everything off and have no desire for sex. And so, that's one of the ways that trauma can have an impact on intimacy.
Yeah, I think it's important. I know during couples therapy, you run into where there's intimacy issues, either from each partner, and it usually stems from sexual trauma, and it's a level of dissociation, as you mentioned, where certain members of the couple kind of feel a certain way about sex because of the trauma, or there was a real bad experience and it kind of diminished their, okay, I'll only go but so far, right? And then I know a lot of times sometimes you get women in couples that are like, okay, I'm only going to do this much, and then men want to explore everything, or sometimes vice versa. And I think it's important to be knowledgeable about what sex is. I know, like, for me, in going through my master's program and even learning about like sexology as a science, it was important, a level of opening my mind to sex being more than just penetration, right? And I think it starts with that conversation. I think a lot of the stuff that I saw initially when I first got introduced to you was about that level of education and knowing what sex is. And so I appreciate everything that you do, everything you stand for. I really, really appreciate it. I admire a lot of the content you put out. And I think it's really, really helpful. What have you found, though, in your travels has been the most important thing to be successful in a field like yours?
So, to be successful in a field like this, I think the biggest thing is consistency and continuing to show up no matter what's happening, but to continue being there for the people who are following you, who are listening, who want to know more. The one thing that you brought up a minute ago that I did want to touch on is communication, and how communication is so important in all relationships. And that if you do have separate desires, maybe one wants to explore more than the other, having that open communication about, hey, maybe right now these are some things that I'm open to trying, and let's see how those go. And what you may desire can change with time. And so continually having open communication allows you to continually evolve as a couple and potentially explore new things.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of the hallmark in what successful couples are. They'll all say is, oh, we talk, we communicate, right? And knowing what's safe and what's not. I think for younger couples, there's a level of they're all coming to a relationship with a certain level of experiences and baggage, right? And so then it's trying to be open to the other's experience, right? Which is another form of communication that gets rarely kind of discussed. Is you communication is a two-way street. Listening is just as important as talking. So we don't listen as much, which is why we have two ears and one mouth. We should listen more and talk less. So let me ask you finally, I know for when I worked for LA County Probation, I did a lot of the commercially sexually exploited children. I worked a lot with that group, and it was probably one of the toughest assignments that I had during my time there. Um, what do you say to those women in particular, but people who have been sexually exploited? How do you help them find that confidence if you've ever encountered that?
Yeah, I think that it really starts within and really focusing on your relationship with yourself and accepting yourself, loving yourself first. And as you develop a relationship with yourself, you connect to yourself some more, then you're able to potentially connect more with a partner. But it really starts with you as an individual first to make that choice to want to continue to enjoy pleasure in life.
All right, great. Well, I really appreciate you giving us this time and really educating folks. I'll give you this moment to kind of, promote your Instagram, your podcast, and and things like that. And then, like I said, I really appreciate the time. I really, really I kind of wait for your next, content on IG because I'm really like a fan of it. So I don't mean to fanboy out on you, but I appreciate it. But here's your opportunity to kind of let everybody know where they can reach you, how you can be seen, heard, so on and so forth.
Love it. Thank you. I'm so glad you enjoy my content. It can be a lot of fun to put together, all of those reels and things. But you can find me on Instagram at Jordan Donnell, which is JordanDannelle. You can also follow me on my podcast, Vaginas, Vulvas, and Vibrators, anywhere that you listen to podcasts, whether that's iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, it's everywhere. You can also check out my website, jordandannelle.com. And if you go to foreplay.jordandannelle.com, you will get my ultimate guide to foreplay.
All right. We appreciate it. Thank you so much, Jordan, for coming through. This is the BU podcast. Mike Arrington will be right back.
You are listening to the BU podcast with Michael Arrington.
Yes. We're back. BU podcast. It's Mike Arrington here, man. I want to thank my guest, Jordan Dannelle, for coming through and educating us on some things in regards to sex and intimacy. I think it's a beautiful thing when people can kind of come together, man, and educate themselves in all facets. It's really, really important that we do that. But in closing, I kind of want to give you some tips that I would usually give clients of mine when it comes down to intimacy or lack thereof, and kind of ways to communicate it, in a safer place than just, microaggressions and things of that nature. So try to stay away from things like you haven't initiated sex in X amount of days. Try to do like, I'm loving you. I love laying next to you. Can we do this more often? You know what I'm saying? Stay away from, you must not be attracted to me anymore. We never have sex. Try to communicate it as such, saying, I'm feeling physically disconnected from you lately. What can we do to work on that? Or lastly, what's the point of cuddling if it never leads anywhere? I miss the feeling I get when I'm next to you. How do you feel about that? Try those things, man, to kind of reconnect with communicating better. A lot of times and often in any relationship, most relationships, communication is usually key. Is usually how we present something comes off more projecting, especially when we're frustrated or angry. And we need to try to do that, communicate better. I know I work on that daily with my wife and my kids, trying to be more effective at communicating, because I deal with emotions and behaviors for a living. I'm cognizant of it, so I try to portray that in my day to day. I was just speaking to my wife today in regards to how we could be better at communicating instructions to our children as opposed to yelling and things of that nature, and how we kind of judge their response or lack thereof based on our expectations as opposed to what they actually know. A lot of times, man, as adults, we kind of got to take ourselves off the soapbox and kind of meet the kids where they're at. I see it every day in my work. So why not give that same respect, patience, time, and energy to the children who I created and the children that I protect and I love every day. So it's important, man. Communication is the key. I hope y'all learned something new today. Get at me, man. The BU Podcast, Mike Arrington, man. We are rolling. I'll holla at y'all in a minute. Easy.
You are listening to the BU Podcast with Michael Arrington.